On June the 22nd, 1941, Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union. The German Wehrmacht advanced quickly in the direction of Leningrad. Less than a month later, German forces were stopped near the Luga fortified region. Adolf Hitler decided to destroy both Leningrad and Moscow after their capture by the Germans. The Wehrmacht resumed its offense in late August 1944. Breaking through Soviet defenses and blocking Leningrad by land. All railroads, roads and river lines of communication linking the city with the rest of the country were severed. But the Germans failed to quickly seize Leningrad. About 500,000 local residents built new defenses day and night. Enemy units were stopped 16 kilometers from the famous Winter Palace, the former residence of the Russian Tsars. The ring of fire and steel closed in around Leningrad on September the 8th. One of Hitler's directives stated that the Germans were not interested in preserving even part of the population during this particular battle, that Leningrad had nothing to count on, that it would fall sooner or later, and that it was destined to perish as a result of famine. The nature of the fighting changed as the Germans launched all-out artillery bombardments. Several thousand incendiary bombs were dropped on the city. The main local food depots were destroyed as a result, triggering a severe famine in November 1941. Food rations were continually reduced during the siege. Factory workers received 250 grams of bread per day, with office workers, children and senior citizens receiving 125 grams. Malt, barley, husk and pulp accounted for 40% of the bread's content. People began to die en masse, with local burial services taking hundreds of dead bodies from city streets each day. The children fared worse than anyone. 12-year-old Tanya Savicheva, 1930 to 1944, wrote the following 6-page diary in her 9-page notebook. Zhenya died on December 28, 1941. Grandma died on January the 25th, 1942. Lika died on March 17, 1942. Uncle Vasya died on April 13, 1942. Uncle Lesha on May 10, 1942. Mother on May 13, 1942. Savichevs died. Everyone died. Only Tanya is left. In all, 1.3 million were evacuated from the city during the entire siege, but most of the children would never see their parents again. The so-called Road of Life across Lake Ladoga was the only route linking the city with the rest of the country, but this route could not provide Leningrad with enough food and weapons. The Red Army tried to lift the siege of Leningrad 5 times throughout 1942, but to no avail. In January 1943, elements of the Red Army's Leningrad and Volkhov fronts cut out an 11-kilometer wide salient along the southern shore of Lake Ladoga. It took the Soviets 17 days to build a railroad and a new road in the area. The German generals realized that they were unlucky to capture Leningrad and intensified artillery attacks 6 times over. But local residents became more positive because their situation had improved, at least slightly.
Leningrad Radio. Говорит Leningrad.
A year later, in January 1944, the Red Army conducted another major offensive and lifted the siege completely on January the 27th. The survivors will never forget the terrible price paid by the Soviet people in an effort to preserve this beautiful city which is now enjoyed by the rest of the world.